Hello, world. It's Jinkx Monsoon. Hi, Jinx.
Hi.
Hi, that's me, Sean, an associate producer for the Today Show with Hoda and Jenna. But more importantly, in the other pair of striking red pants, that's Jinkx Monsoon. And if you don't know, she is a powerhouse of drag excellence. Touring around the world as an internationally tolerated, her words, not mine, comedian, singer, actor, and cabaret icon. Not to mention winning RuPaul's Drag Race not just once in Season 5, but for a second time in All-Star 7 against a cast of all previous winners. So where does this RuPaul-appointed queen of all queens go next after making drag TV history? Well, why not go make some history on Broadway? And where else to break ground in theater than at a show that knows a little something about leaving an impression, Chicago. Thanks to the longest-running American musical in Broadway history, Jinx has added to the trailblazing by becoming the first drag queen to play the role of Matron Mama Morton.
When you're good to Mama,
But just days before this electric Broadway debut, I sat down with Jinx to see how she's getting ready for yet another monsoon season.
Thank you for being here today. You're literally in the middle of rehearsing for Chicago, so I appreciate the time. 6 days until your Broadway debut as of this interview. How are rehearsals going?
Rehearsals are going great.
Good.
I just keep, I'm not focusing on how many days.
Let's strike that from the record.
We're taking each day, one day at a time.
Yes. Well, I was just thinking last time I interviewed you, we had a brief connection over both being high anxiety Virgos.
As a high anxiety Virgo, that kind of drove me through the hardest moments,
As a high anxiety Virgo myself.
Really?
Absolutely. We're both struggling right now. So how is that playing into how you're navigating this mentally right now?
I'm just such a huge advocate for therapy because, when you're going and going and going, you really need someone to talk to who's not emotionally invested in your life. Witchcraft and therapy, always my go-tos. But honestly, working with Rob and David and this rehearsal process has been just a dream come true. They've given me so much trust and freedom while also cluing me in on joining not only a well-oiled machine, but there's a reason why this show has been around so long. It's a very, very good show.
Well, and this is a big deal. I can't tell you the number of people that have been talking to me about you being cast, people that have never talked about Broadway before, clamoring to get tickets.
I think that's kind of that's where we're headed right now. It's where we're headed culturally in media. Giving people the stage that we've known they've been ready for a long time. Society just hasn't been ready for us, But it's just been really exciting. Peppermint was the first trans woman to originate a character on Broadway, the first drag queen on Broadway, to follow in her footsteps and be the first drag queen playing a role intended for a cis woman. One is what I've always wanted to do, and two is just a huge freaking honor,
Well, so how did this come about? Was it something that you pursued? Did they come to you? What was the call like when you found out?
It was very traditional. My representation emailed me and said, "Would you like to audition for Mama Morton?" And I said, "Hell yes!" And I went and auditioned, and it was a wonderful, exciting audition. And then about 2 months later, I had the role.
Wow.
Maybe 2 months is an exaggeration, but it felt like I was waiting forever, and everyone was like, "Things are positive."
Yeah.
And then the day that we finalized everything, it was that's when I called my family because I didn't want to jinx anything.
Yeah. But I do the same thing.
High anxiety Virgos.
Was Broadway always on the horizon? Was it always a goal of yours, or?
Absolutely, because for me, what I've always wanted to do was take drag to the biggest platforms possible. And we're seeing that now in media, and we're seeing drag queens. Yes, drag is our medium, but we are also full-fledged comedians, full-fledged actors, singer-songwriters, you know. Putting drag in front of the rest of who we are doesn't diminish the rest of who we are.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always wanted to do with my drag work. And this feels like the ultimate culmination of things I've been working towards for a while.
Especially since, is it true that your first performance in drag was to All That Jazz?
Yes.
Oh, she's got that shimmy till her garters break and all that jazz.
I had rehearsed I Can't Do It Alone, but I ended up going with All That Jazz. And I sang it live, and it was my go-to number for years and years and years. But Mama Morton, I mean, it just feels so perfect. It feels so perfect, you know. The world's premier drag queen MILF getting to play one of the, you know, the most motherly roles.
Well, I was going to say, she has got a big jazz cabaret number. She's surrounded by all these scoundrels. She's a motherly figure without any children. So you've basically been in character for 10 years.
Listen, you ask my chosen family who Mama is, and they'll all tell you. So I have been preparing for this role for a while.
Well, it's been a good fit for a wide range of people. Other people that have done this on that same stage include Jennifer Holliday, Linda Carter, Nene Leakes, and Wendy Williams. So what's your spin on
Gemma Collins in the UK?
Gemma Collins in the UK, yes. Yes, and Queen Latifah famously, of course, too.
My husband's British, so I'm basically bilingual. But you know, it's exciting. I would say it's daunting, but it's the rehearsal team I've been working with, Rob, who conducts often the show, and David, who's the stage manager, have really made me feel comfortable bringing my special take on the character. And I haven't felt confined by the character at all, but I also know what we want from the character. So it's been this exciting acting challenge, whereas I've been writing my own work for the last decade, and doing that is so much fun, but there's no homework. I already know why the character's saying what she's saying because I wrote it for her. Yeah. With Mama, I get to take this text that has been around for so long and has been revered and honored for so long and figure out how I'm going to bring Jinkx Monsoon to the character, not bring the character down to me.
Well, because I want to ask, when you're in full drag, how much of that is a character versus who you really are?
When you've been doing it as long as I have, it's, you know, I don't even realize the shift, but it's when I'm in full drag, once the heels, the corset, the hair and makeup, everything's in place. Yeah. Then all of a sudden I'm just Jinx, you know? But I also have written characters for myself that are not Jinx. So I know how to bring what people want to see from me and what people want to see from the character into one performance. Yeah. And that's just, you know, I've been doing drag for 20 years, so this I can't tell you how it happens, it just happens.
Well, that explains why so many other queens I've seen online have been so supportive and applauding this. What's it feel like to see that outpouring of support?
I've had a mantra for years that I live by, which is a step forward for one of us is a step forward for all of us. And that goes for drag queens, that goes for members of the LGBTQ plus community, and I think that's where the support is rooted. You know, there are times when me and another queen go for a role and she gets it, and of course I have my actor's ego is like, oh, I would have loved to get that role. But my drag queen is saying, oh my gosh, at least one of us got the role. Yeah. At least it went to a drag queen who is really well apt for this role, you know.
It does feel like a victory for a lot of people. And there are Broadway fans, there are Drag Race fans, and then I feel like there are Jinkx Monsoon fans. And I saw you posted, you were just at DragCon in the UK without your luggage that you lost.
A drag queen's nightmare. Right. And then high anxiety Virgo's ultimate, where is my stuff?
And yet you still got fan art made of you walking the carpet.
Within hours. It's just so funny because I think I used to fight who I am and how life works works for me. My name is Jinx for a reason. You know, if there's someone who's not going to get their bags on one of the biggest drag days of the year.
Yeah.
But that's like really to speak to how supportive the community that supports drag queens has been, not just at this moment, but in the pandemic. The only reason any drag queen was still doing drag during the pandemic is because we had a fan base that followed us online.
Yeah.
So I think 2022 and 2023 have been this time where I'm really seeing the cause and effect between the support the community shows its drag performers and then our ability to take our art form to the next level.
A big source of support, I'm sure, is I know your best friend and co-collaborator, Ben de la Creme.
Who? No, I'm joking.
How has she been helping in all of this? Because I know you just left a tour with her doing the holiday show.
So imagine having a best friend who's also
I'll
like
try,
your
but
sister.
yeah.
But imagine having a best friend who's also like a sibling,
Yeah.
who's also a mentor, who's also a colleague, who's also your boss. You know, like our relationship is so nuanced and complicated, but we work on it. And that's the big thing about significant relationships is they don't just happen. You have to put in the work. And so Dayla and I have been working together for over a decade, but working very intensely together for the last 5 years. And she probably is the person, sorry to my husband, but she probably knows how my brain works more than anyone else's. So she'd catch me kind of having those moments of self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and she would be like, hey, they chose you for a reason, you know, just like that kind of stuff. It's helpful.
Well, like I said, you just left a tour with her. 2022, the whole year was a whirlwind for you. Let me just go through a few of the things that you did. You won Drag Race for a second time. You toured the world, headlined Edinburgh Fringe Festival. You debuted
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
They'll hang you up in the streets for that.
You debuted a stand-up tour, then debuted your sketch show, Sketchy Queens, released an EP, toured again with Ben de la Creme, all while doing a podcast. So what or who are you running from?
Oh, you know, I've always been a workaholic.
Yeah.
And the pandemic I think many live entertainers would say that the pandemic put a lot of things in perspective and also came at a time when I was really worn out and really needed a change in pace.
Yeah.
And now I feel revitalized, galvanized, ready to, conquer the world.
Well, you conquered All-Star 7. After you won, how did things change for you and how did it feel compared to winning Season 5?
You know, winning Season 5, I had been doing drag for quite a while, but I was very young. And I've had a decade of life experience since then. And I think that I was ready in a different way for the whirlwind that you just mentioned. And I also have I have a different confidence now because I feel like Season 5, I knew who I was, but I wasn't great at communicating that to the rest of the world. I don't know if I'm doing it differently or the world caught up to me, but I feel like the world really knows who I am now. And now I second guess myself way less. But I'm still a high anxiety Virgo, so I'm still going to analyze everything 3 times before I do it.
Have you lorded your title of Queen of all Queens over any other queens?
No, in fact, I almost hate bringing it up.
Right. Well, speaking of All-Stars, since the Snatch game in particular, where you mastered the impressions of Natasha Lyonne and Judy Garland.
Now that we're at the midway point, is that my camera?
There's been an online campaign to get you to host Saturday Night Live. Have there been any updates?
You hear
Have you
that,
talked to anybody? Lauren's a fan. He's watching. Have there been any updates?
No, not really, no. But I'm hoping, I'm here in New York
You're in
already.
New York for a few weeks.
If there's a cancellation, I'm just down the street.
There you go. I don't know if you saw this, but RuPaul was on Watch What Happens Live, and somebody asked him about this. And let me just read you the quote again.
Yeah, I know the quote.
He said, "Jinx is a star. We knew it from her audition. I predict that this is the first of many Broadway roles for Jinkx Monsoon. She's a genius, that kid." How does that feel to hear again?
I thought you were going to read the quote that came before that, which was much
It was
bluer.
in between.
But You know, Ru has been very, very kind and generous to me throughout the years, and I've just always felt kind of this kinship. Like, we don't get a lot of time together, but the time we do get together is always really lovely. And I think my favorite thing about interacting with Ru is I can quote anything, and Ru knows the next line.
Yeah.
Like, I can quote any movie within you know, the LGBTQ zeitgeist. I haven't tried like a straighter movie yet, but or like I'll quote James Brown, like an obscure quote from a James Brown song, and Ru knows the next line to the song. And I think that's my favorite thing about spending time with Ru is like we have this shared language, even though it's just drag. Drag is a shared language across the entire world. So I can go to Brazil and not speak Portuguese, but I know what they're saying because they're saying it like a drag queen.
Yeah. If Ru is correct, and this is the first of many Broadway roles for you, other dream roles, obviously you still need to tackle this one, but...
I'll tell you, but then I'm going to have to knock on wood real quick.
Please.
My dream role is Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. It's one of my favorite musicals. Into the Woods is a very close second.
Yeah.
So The Witch, or really even, I'd play any of the Stepmothers, Stepsisters. I love that show. And then to round it out, hell, maybe in 10 years, Mama Rose. We'll see.
Of course. You know, there's so much love in the Broadway community and the drag community, and it makes it so much harder to watch everything that's happening in the world around it. I mean, we've had everything from protests to legislation to a few violent attacks now targeting drag. And I know you've said that you've had to up your security levels and higher guards. So what does it feel like to be a drag queen in America right now?
Well, I said this at the end of the holiday show with Dela every night. Dela was very gracious to let me deliver this speech, but the sentiment came from the whole production. But, you know, we would sell out these big theaters, things we never dreamed of when we started doing this, when we started doing drag 20 years ago, you know. And I would say the support from the staff in the theater, the production crew, every performer, and every audience member bringing their love and support and energy that night, it's still an act of revolution. We take it for granted because we have come so far, but it's still an act of revolution. Until every person in this country is safe to be themselves without fear, you know, that love that we generate at these performances is one of our best antidotes to fight the bigotry and hatred that unquestionably exists in our country. And they can justify it with anything they want, but at the end of the day, it's just plain hatred, ignorance, and conditioning. You know, and until people are ready to confront that within themselves, the conversation is kind of stunted right now. So all we can do is you know, try to spread the message as much as we can. And I think drag queens are getting really good at spreading that message.
Yes, they are. Well, and this might help too because, you know, people come to see Chicago from all over, all different backgrounds. It's a mainstay of Broadway. You might end up being the first drag queen that a lot of these people will ever see in their life. What do you want those people to come away from the show thinking?
If I'm being very candid and honest.
Please.
I want them to come away from the show not knowing whether or not I was a drag queen. I want to be doing the character justice enough that they don't spend any time wondering what's going on under the costume. I want them to just see Mama Morton and not worry about... And that's my whole mission statement as an actor is in college, a professor who I really, really love, and college was however many years ago, but he said that the world, especially American society, wasn't ready to see male-bodied people or people with penises play female roles earnestly. And I said, well, I'm going to change that. And that was like, you know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And now I'm getting the chance to show that maybe we are ready. So it's exciting. It's a little daunting, but like I said, the production's just been so wonderful to me. I already feel like I've been doing this for 10 years. You know?
So when you walk on that stage for the first time, seeing the audience, what do you think that'll feel like to the young Jinx performing all that jazz, or in that college class that's still inside of you, I'm sure?
Frankly, I'm just hoping I don't faint. You know. Yeah, you know, I just want to get out there and do the role justice, and then I'll sort my emotions afterward.
Jinx, thank you.
Thank you.
That was lovely.